I bring to you discussion of ultimate issue. And let me tell you why. It's always good to periodically review why I do this. We are which is going to be my subject, a feelings-based age and not a reflective age. And by not reflecting on the great issues of life, we have become stupid. We are extremely bright intellectually and extremely knowledgeable. I suspect people know more fact. So there's a great deal of knowledge, though it's not about important things. And if you can't work out a philosophy of life, you can't be happy. And you can't have coherent thoughts on the greatest issues of life. I mean, that's pretty self-evident. There's a chapter of that in my happiness book, by the way, it's probably the only chapter in the book that I think I may not have done. I'm not sure if I did, on a happiness hour. And that is that you need to have a philosophy of life to be happy. Otherwise, you don't know how to fit what happens in life into any coherent framework. Is that clear? It's very important. That's why this hour is so important, not only morally and philosophically and intellectually, but also in terms of happiness. The clearer you are about life, the happier you will be. I am in love with clarity, as I have said so many times. Anyway, welcome to the Ultimate Issues Hour. This is why we do it. I mentioned to you recently that I had given a talk to high school future leaders who are now in high school future leaders. And they are very, I have donated this speech year after year to Pepperdine University, which conducts this phenomenal leadership seminar for I don't know how many, a few hundred high school kids. And one after the other was intelligent and every background, and it was great. I get great joy speaking to them. And I spoke this year about something that I begged you to get, and I talked about the most important thing, basically, that they will have to do in their lives to be good people and to be happy people. And that's pretty much what it's about, right? To be good and to be happy. And that is battle their feelings. You know, I have dubbed our age since the 60s the age of stupidity, which indeed it is. But I have now given it a more sophisticated name, which equals an age of stupidity, but is more precise. It's the age of feelings. See, what the Judeo-Christian value system has said for its 2,000 years, and Judaism prior to that for over 1,000, was that the human being, to achieve wisdom, goodness, happiness, whatever good value there is, you have to, before everything else, battle yourself. And we don't have that. It's not taught today. It is not taught. Kids, an entire generation has not been taught, including the baby boomers, were not taught by the greatest generation. The baby boomers didn't come out of nowhere. The greatest generation forgot what it is to teach, to be an American, and for that matter, even to be a good person. They just were so happy there's no war. They're so happy they could give their kids, quote, this is a line you may not have heard, but growing up I heard this all the time from parents of the World War II generation. You know, I wanted to give my kids everything I didn't have. And I remember when I was in my 20s thinking, that wasn't the most brilliant piece of advice. See, what they should have done, and I said this in my 20s, I am proud to say, I said what they had it backwards. What they should have said is, we are going to give our kids everything we did have. That's where the greatest generation failed. It did not give the next generation what it did have, which was an incredibly strong value system religiously and patriotically. See? That's the irony. They gave their kids what they didn't have, money, college education, but they didn't give their kids what they did have, the strongest sense of patriotism and a very strong religious belief basis. That's in a nutshell how the 60s morons were. That's my generation. Okay? Now, were all of us morons? No. Obviously. So don't call up and tell me, well, I'm from the baby boomers and I'm insulted. Don't be insulted. I'm a member of the baby boomers and I'm not insulting myself. But a vast number of people from the 60s were fools. But I don't blame them always. I don't. Their parents, and the irony is of what's called the greatest generation, which is a term Tom Brokaw used I have never bought. They were a great generation. I don't know if they were the greatest. But they were a great generation, absolutely. And this great generation didn't give what it did have, which was a very strong sense of patriotism, of duty to country, and a very, very strong religious sense by and large. And so a secular, hedonistic generation, the baby boomers, ensued. And the biggest difference is in terms of values is largely this, aside from the patriotic and service issue, and I don't mean military service, I mean service to society, and service to others. The biggest issue is, do you battle yourself? That's one thing that is clear as daylight. The religious mindset is you better battle yourself. Whatever the language you use, whatever your religion in the Judeo-Christian realm, it doesn't matter what expression it is of Judeo-Christian values. It is permeated, or should be permeated, and was. I think that it's changing. Even that is changing as the left influences religion more than the religion influences society. And what you always had was, you better battle yourself. You're a sinner. That's the Christian way of putting it. Or you have in Hebrew Yetzer Hara, you have a very bad inclination. Whatever it is, which is the same thing as sinner. It's just different rhetoric. But it was a clear understanding. I need to battle me to be a good person. What you now have is, I need to battle environmental degradation to be a good person. I need to battle social injustice to be a good person. I need to battle inequality to be a good person. I need to battle sexism in the workplace to be a good person. I need to battle, certainly, big business to be a good person. But there's no battle itself. You don't hear it ever. You have to admit it, folks. Even if you don't share my politics, admit it. You do not hear the rhetoric of battling yourself. No goodness can prevail. No goodness can come about in the world if you don't battle yourself. That's number one. And what battling yourself is essentially battling your feelings. We have become a heart-based society as opposed to a conscience-based society, paying a huge price. 1-8-Prager-776, we continue. Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here, the Ultimate Issues Hour. We live in the age of feelings. That's what's happened. The age of feelings. I call it the age of stupidity because if you base anything on feelings alone, except, the obvious, you could love your dog based on feelings. I have no problem with that. And you love your kid. But even if loving your kid, you shouldn't love your kid based only on feelings. You have deepest feelings. As a parent, believe me, I know how much I love my kids. But if we only do it based on feelings and not on wisdom, we're not going to raise good kids. And if we do, we're just lucky. And so what has happened is we have substituted feelings for thought and ended up with real problems. This was done, as I say, by the greatest generation that didn't pass on what they had. And that includes the biggest single lesson. And this is what I spoke to these kids at Pepperdine. They weren't college kids. They were high school kids, terrific high school kids, I might add. And it was about fighting your feelings. You can't be a good person if you don't battle your feelings. You know how I've talked about that, about happiness. If you base whether you're happy on your feelings, you won't be happy, which is so contraindicated. Most people think, no, I either feel happy or not. But people feel happy or unhappy like a roller coaster on any given day. Imagine, oh yeah, well, I'm unhappy, happy, unhappy, happy, moderately unhappy, and that's in 1 hour. God forbid you depend just on feelings to determine whether you're happy, let alone anything else. I'll give you another example outside of happiness. This is the oldest example I have given. When I first realized in my 20s the tragedy of heart-based determinant of what is good. Would you save your dog or a stranger if both were drowning? This has been always my best single example. A generation, i.e. mine, and now the next generation as well, raised to be heart-based. Gee, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about it? Instead of this is right and wrong, the battle is against Judeo-Christian notions. There is a right and a wrong. The anti-Judeo-Christian position is you feel it. How do you feel about it? Okay, and if you feel about it, I remember in Florida, and I'll come back to the dog and stranger. In Florida, the New York Times, this is probably 20 years ago, they had values clarification classes. Yeah. But they would never tell you, the mediator or the moderator of the class would never tell you what's right or wrong. Never. It wasn't her business. It was a she in that case. She said, it's not my business to tell the students what's right or wrong. It's only for them to work it out for themselves. So, for example, they gave the example of if you found a wallet with money in it in the high school corridors, would you return it? Some kids said yes, some kids said no, but she refused to say that it was wrong not to return it. It's all feelings. How do you feel about returning the wallet? How do you feel about it? My older son, when he was 2, was thrown down in a park by a 5-year-old. His mother told me the story. I didn't witness it. I was at work when this happened. And the mother saw her 5-year-old throw down this 2-year-old who happened to have been my child. The mother ran over to the boy and said, "Darling, what's troubling you?" See? There's no right or wrong. But if you threw down a little baby, well then, there must be something troubling you. Instead of a nice whack, which would have been the best possible response, in my opinion. Though I know that every time I say that, there are blogs that go like this. Prager advocates child molestation, not molestation, child abuse. To whack a bully who throws a baby down on the tush is child abuse. Okay, this is the age we live in. This is why it's called the age of stupidity. It's the age of feelings. So the speech that I gave, and one I beg you to get, just write me or call the office at 800-225-8584, is this issue. I know for a fact, I'm sorry if it sounds bragging, I don't care. It's worth it for the cause. I changed a lot of lives that day. Ask anybody at Pepperdine who was there, including its chancellor, the wonderful Charles Runnels. Kids were changed. They had never quite heard these things. You have to spend your life battling your feelings. You cannot let your heart be the guide for what is right and what is wrong. That, in the final analysis, is the biggest battle in our society. That is, in the final analysis, the biggest battle. It comes down to that. Is there a right and a wrong, or is everybody to determine it based on his or her heart?